Sydney University's Brain and Mind Centre, backed by the AMA, that says the economic and social impacts of this virus shutdown risk a death rate from suicide that could be as high as 4 times what we'll see out of the pandemic itself. Now, I know this isn't an easy subject to discuss for so many of us, but given tomorrow the premiers will all meet with the PM and decide whether to keep this shutdown up or start to wind us back to a somewhat normal life, how people are coping with financial stress in isolation or not coping, as the case might be, is a very important consideration. We can't be shutting down the country to save lives from a virus only to lose more and then some to suicide if Professor Hickey's modelling is right. Joining me now for my panel, Sky News host from across Australia, Peter Gleeson in Brisbane, and Sky News host and 2GB radio broadcaster, Chris Smith in Sydney. Chris, I want to start with you. Tomorrow we've got to see a fair income timetable. None of this, we're all in it together rubbish. We need a timetable, we need dates, we need to know what success looks like, because we've all done what we've been told for the last 8 weeks. I think the government's got to start treating us like grown-ups and laying it out for us.
I wonder whether we're about to see one of the great fizzes to emerge from the National Cabinet. Now, I don't like to be negative, Nellie, but from what I heard from the New South Wales Premier today, when she began her press conference saying, I want to let you all down about Mother's Day, there'll be no change to the rules that exist in New South Wales. But by the end of June, by the end of June, are you suggesting, despite the fact that we've got single-figure new infections going on at the moment, that we've got 757 existing cases around Australia in a population of 25 million, that people in New South Wales have to wait, and bear in mind this is businesses and people who are desperate to get back into a job, we've got to wait another 7 weeks? I'm sorry. Yeah. I have a feeling the fact that she showed her hand today indicates she doesn't give a damn about the National Cabinet, Peter.
Well, she's on the show just after the break with me, and she does say some things about schools. I want you to stay with us and listen to those because she's quite specific. But, I don't have an issue if things don't open up tomorrow ahead of Sunday's Mother's Day. But bloody hell, I want to know on Monday stuff's going to happen, and the next Monday, and the next Monday, that we have a proper timetable, Gleeson. Because I feel like a mushroom. I feel like we've been told to do all these things, throw our lives into chaos, shut down businesses, and somewhere, someone, the big daddy government, is going to maybe take us into a confidence and say you can start this up and that up when we see fit. We've got to know detail.
Yeah, businesses want clarity, they want confidence, they want certainty. They are the 3 capabilities that they really want right now, Peter. And I think what this underscores is the madness that's going on in some states. And I'm particularly referring here to Victoria and, of course, Queensland, where they've really gone so hard, particularly in Victoria, greatest golf courses in the world, you can't go and play golf. I must admit, I saw today's front page of the Herald Sun, and it was very obvious that the people of Victoria are fast running out of patience with Daniel Andrews. I think it's going to hurt him at the ballot box. And on the way in tonight, I was listening to the Queen's song, I Want to Break Free. And that is about to become the national anthem here for Victoria, because I can tell you now, it really is a real damning indictment on Premier Daniel Andrews that they're in that state. And you just mentioned those mental health figures, Peter. That is my concern. My concern is that we are going to be overrun with bankruptcies, with businesses going down the drain, and people are going to be hurt financially, and we know what happens when that actually occurs. So I think tomorrow is a line in the sand for this country. We've done the right thing. Australians have flattened the curve. We need to be rewarded.
Just a quick one to you, Chris Smith, saying you're a New South Welshman, but all this brouhaha about coalition ministers in the New South Wales government all thinking that they're going to go to Canberra with a knapsack there and run Friedman Aero and, blah, 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 blah. Surely the Premier's got to say, OK, fellas, you're stuck here now, get back to work, or if you won't, I'll bring you into a reshuffle, sooner rather than later.
There's nothing worse than a sideshow. There's nothing worse than a government that seems to get trapped into politics as opposed to policy and moving forward. But at a time when we've got a pandemic, this is the worst time possible for 2 very big egos to think that they're up to the hurly-burly of federal politics. And it reminds me, using a little bit of cricket parlance, it reminds me of the War Twins when they used to run between the wickets. Yes, no, maybe. Yes, no, maybe. Like, seriously, it was the greatest joke. And these are relatively popular and able senior ministers. And I don't know, I have a feeling that the way John Barilaro handled all of this and throwing his text messages out, etc., I don't know whether too many in his party or in the coalition would dare to trust him again.
Oh, I think there's also plenty of people in Canberra in the National Party who don't want him there because they're not so much concerned about winning or losing Eden Monero. I think he was a good shot to win the seat. They just don't want to lose their cushy jobs in the ministry, or in one man in particular, his cushy job as Deputy Prime Minister. And this is where I think the public have such a disdain for the politics of the personal advancement as opposed to the policies and things that keep our country headed in the right direction. Which brings me, of course, to Queensland. I've got to ask you, Gleeson, I mean, all these backroom machinations, one of the right have now leapt to the left. It's Ipswich West backbencher Jim Madden, I'm told. That gives the Premier Palaszczuk 16 MPs in a right faction. Trad's got 23 on the left. Like it's like two queens up there in Queensland duelling over the one throne, isn't it?
And Chris Smith is absolutely right. In the middle of a pandemic, here we've got another situation in Queensland where backroom factional machinations are taking place. So here it is. Jim Madden, he's quite a conservative guy, colourful character, a lawyer, but he was in Anastasia Palaszczuk's faction. He's been wooed across to the left faction because the left faction run the party here in Queensland. They run the caucus, they run the cabinet, they run everything. Their head is the treasurer. And of course, he belled the cat today, Peter, because he put out a Facebook post saying, look, I'm 100% behind Anastasia Palaszczuk, which is what he would say. But I do know that if I want to adequately service my community of Ipswich West, I need to be in the left faction. So basically he's acknowledged that they parish pump, that they pork barrel all of the left faction MPs' electorates. And that's exactly what goes on here in Queensland. You would think, though, that with the state of play here in Queensland, with Deputy Premier Jackie Trad's inability to get her house purchases right, with the fact that they've done so many bad things when it comes to the economy, that they'd be travelling ordinary. But we've said this before, the LNP here in Queensland can't strike a blow. It's still 50-50. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it is extraordinary, Chris. I mean, this, again, is where people lose patience. There's an election coming up in October. I think Palaszczuk would love to skate through under the cover of coronavirus. But more and more of the polling coming out of Queensland is that people are very unhappy with where the state is at. If she wins, she will be returned for 3 elections. Extraordinary. That takes her into sort of John Howard territory. And I have to say, I reckon she's one of the most underwhelming premiers we've got.
And all you had to do was look at the press conference today when she started to get the hard questions about public service pay rises, which is nothing short of disgraceful in the current environment when we've got, 1.53...
But how does she get away with it? How does she get away with it? Don't know.
But I do know one thing. If she gets too arrogant as we get closer to this state election, she might lose by a nose. And wouldn't it be good to get a fresh face, a fresh roadmap to follow in Queensland? Because I tell you what, Queenslanders have copped this for far too long.
I think you need an ad, Gleeson, where you hold up a picture of Trad and say, if you want to get rid of her, you got to get rid of her. Oh. You know, like it's a pack of cards. Well, you want her to go, she's got to go too.
And in regional Queensland, Peter, her brand is completely toxic, and that's why the Katters and the One Nations will do well up there as well. That's the problem here at the moment. I mean, you know, we've got a dud government, but we've got an opposition that can't strike a blow, and it's very, very frustrating. I've got to say, it's very, very frustrating.
You're right, well, I'll leave it there. Campbell Newman wrote a good piece giving them basically an instruction manual on how to shake things up. Let's see if they take notice. Chris Smith, Peter Gleeson, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Peter.